Okay, so I'm going to talk about chick physiology and thermoregulation and the shipping of day-old chicks. So when you want to buy poultry, like you can go to your local farm store and get them, but the easiest way if you want to get like new blood or different breeds is to get them from hatcheries that are across the U.S. or from individual breeders. And so chicks have special physiology that makes it easy for them to be shipped through the mail. So you can do it through the United States Postal Service since 1918, and it lets you do it as long as they're in a properly prepared container and they get to the person who bought them within 72 hours. So the reason for this is because of chick physiology. When the chick is about to hatch, they absorb the rest of the yolk sac, which is basically what's been keeping them alive when they're in the egg for the 21 days. And so they can retain that yolk sac, use that retaining yolk sac as energy for about 48 to 72 hours. And so this is why they can be shipped through the mail and not have to have food or water, so they still have that energy. And then the chicks themselves can keep themselves warm by huddling, which reduces the surface area. But then we have some things that humans have to do to make it more possible for these chicks to be shipped. So this is a gosling. This is like the yolk sac that they would normally absorb. This one has retained it, so it's outside the body. And then this is, when they're in the embryo, this is the vitals is the yolk, and that's what they'll absorb before hatching. So humans kind of have to help, because obviously you couldn't just put your chicks in a random postal box and get them to their location without the box. So
are you going to show us one of the boxes?
I'm going to show you a picture of the box. Yes. So they use specialized transport boxes. They're made of cardboard, and they're made to both keep the chicks warm but still allow airflow. And so the goal of these boxes, between the boxes and the chicks huddling, is to keep them in their thermoneutral zone. And for chicks, that's about 90 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit.
Very good.
When they're born. So if they go above or below that, they're going to be use up too many of the nutrients from the yolk sac and start using their own energy, which can lead to like decreased productivity in future ages. Also, expedited shipping. They usually want them there within 72 hours. I did it when I did it last May. Mine shipped out Monday, and I got them Wednesday morning. Usually they'll have a specific number of chicks you have to order to make sure you have enough to keep each other warm. And it's usually 15 during the summer and 25 during the winter. But generally, if hatcheries think there isn't enough, they'll add some in for free that are usually some male chicks because they don't have as much use for those. Right when you get the chicks, you have to introduce them to food and water immediately, because depending on how long they've been in shipping in transit, you want them to be able to reestablish those energies. So usually you want the water to be lukewarm. Sometimes they'll add like electrolytes or sugar to make it more appetizing and kind of restore those ions. And you'll actually like take the chicks and dip their beaks in water to make sure they drink immediately. And wherever you like have your setup for your birds, you'll want to make sure it's already warm and the heat link set up so they can go straight into an environment that's fit for them. And so these are the boxes. This is one with chicks in it, and this is one without. You see, it kind of has holes in it. It looks very fragile, but it works for shipping chicks. And sometimes they'll have like heat pads or straw or shavings in the bottom, especially in the winter to keep them more warm. And those are my chicks.
Yeah, I've actually seen those come through the mail. It's amazing when you first see them. I like the idea that they have a certain number you have to have, because if you had like 3 chicks in that box, they'd all die by the time they got you in the winter time, because they wouldn't be able to keep their heat. Any questions, comments about that? Chicks through the mail, what do they, since you've done it, what do they charge per chick or whatever?
It depends on what breed you get. Trying to remember, I think mine were around $3 or $4 a chick, but mine were a rarer breed.
Okay, I was going to say that sounds expensive, but
So.
yeah. Any comments?
I'm going to present on countercurrent heat exchange. We kind of went over it in class, but I have a few more details we can go over. So first of all, we should know what endotherms, mesotherms, and ectotherms are. Endotherms generate heat internally in order to maintain body temperature. They're also called warm-blooded or homeothermic, and some examples are birds and mammals. Mesotherms generate heat internally, but they're incapable of maintaining a stable body temperature, and examples are sharks and tuna fish. Ectotherms, they obtain their heat from their surroundings, and they're also called cold-blooded, or however you pronounce that.
Yeah. Go to the next slide fast, and then we don't have to worry about it.
Okay, and just to review, we went over conduction, and that is the flow of internal energy, in this case in the form of heat, from a region of higher temperature to one of lower temperature. It occurs due to the interaction of adjacent structures, as we will discuss here, or particles in a specific space. And we also went over the factors that affect the rate of heat transfer during conduction, and those are temperature difference, length, cross-sectional area, and material. And then this image kind of shows how maybe this is a bar or wood or something, and this end obviously is hotter, and the heat is going to be transferred through conduction to the person's hand, which is at a cooler temperature. So what is countercurrent heat exchange? It is a counterflow mechanism that allows fluids of different temperatures and channels flowing in opposite directions to exchange heat content without mixing. It is a form of natural selection and adaptation, and it is efficient because it saves energy, it conserves heat, and helps maintain a core body temperature, especially in cold conditions. And it occurs in mammals, birds, fish, and poultry. So how it works is blood from the body core will flow to the extremities, such as our feet or our hands, or the surface of the skin, and carries heat that can easily be lost to the skin. So the vein returning blood to the body core runs alongside the artery, taking that blood to the extremities. And then heat from the warmer arterial blood will move to the cooler venous blood across the vessels by means of conduction. Hence, the venous blood will recover heat from the arterial blood as it warms on its way back to the body. So if the core body temperature gets too high, this is a kind of like adaptive system. So as I said, when the core body temperature gets too high, the blood supply to the surface or the extremities will increase in order to release that heat through the skin. If not, then the animal will sweat, as we have also discussed before. And then something very interesting is that the organ most susceptible to damage by high temperature is the brain. And so mammals have a countercurrent heat exchanger located between the carotid arteries and the vessels that distribute blood to the brain. The arterial blood transfers heat to the cooler venous blood that are coming back from the nose and the mouth before going to the brain. And then the hypothalamus has temperature receptors that control this shift of blood flow in order to maintain homeostasis. And as you can see here in this image, that's just pointing out where the hypothalamus is.
And you could also call, instead of shifting, you could say shunting.
Mm-hmm. And then I have quite a few images, because it's very interesting how adaptive this system is depending on the species. Here we have dog paws, and you can also see the comparison between the temperatures. This is the venous blood and the arterial blood, and then these are the vessels through which conduction occurs. And then over here we have a pigeon, we have a goose, and a dolphin. So it's also interesting how it occurs in the fins of many mammals. Here we have a moose, we have a turtle. It also occurs in their fins. In humans, it occurs in our arms and our legs. And then in sharks, it occurs in his whole like body core. Something very interesting too that I found is that this happens a lot in the tongue of whales. So whales, they take up a lot of cold seawater, And we know that water has a very high specific heat, so it will take a lot of heat from the animal. So they adapted through the system in order to conserve heat and try to maintain their body temperature.
That's a good histological slide. Go back to that one. Point out the artery. Point out the, yeah, I guess you can see.
Here is the artery going like from the body core to the tip of the tongue, and then the venous blood is flowing back into the body core, as you can see here in blue.
And then point out on the histology there, up on the upper right.
This,
Yeah, that's kind of neat.
yeah.
It'd be the artery in the middle and surrounded by
Yep.
like 6 little veins. It
Little
looks like.
veins, yeah.
That's amazing architecture. All set?
Yep. These are my references.
Okay, so the last thing we're talking about before the test is what we can do to help animals regulate their temperature, okay? Because we talked about physiological mechanisms like countercurrent heat exchange is one of those. We talked about what animals can do if they're given some free choice, right? If they have enough room. If you have them penned up and it's very dense, then they can't really choose where to lay, where to go, whatever. So I wanted to get an image on the screen. One thing you can do is provide shade. Obviously this would be in hot environments, because look at those black cattle. I don't know if they're Angus or they're partly Angus at least. And of course that's the worst color you can be if you want to stay cool in the summer on a sunny day, because black has the best or the highest absorption of electromagnetic waves. So obviously they're taking care of the shade, and you can see they have a lot of room. If they don't want to be in the shade, they can go right over to the grass area to the right. So they have a lot of free choice. I know like in Florida and like hot environments like New Mexico, I've been by huge dairies, and it's like very hot, and they provide a lot of shade, and that helps. Okay, so I want some volunteers in the audience to tell me what you've seen people do to help animals thermoregulate, whether it's in the winter or the summer. What can mankind do? So here we go.
Put fans in their enclosure.
Fans, okay. That's a form of forced convection, right? So whenever we talk about a mechanism by mankind, can you say what heat transfer mechanism is operating? Okay, so fans, forced convection, yes. Somebody else, Jared.
Out west, I've seen them put just old trailers to act as wind blocks, and the cows figure it out pretty quick.
Okay, so yeah, wind breaks by, like you said, trailers. I know you and I talked about that before. They put up wood fences sometimes out there in the plains. They're never solid wood fences, because those would get blown over. They've always got some space between them to allow some of the wind to go through. So you put up what we'll say windbreaks. Could be a row of trees, could be a building, whatever. So you're cutting down on convective heat loss in the wintertime by cutting down the wind. And wind is crazy because when the temperature is low, what's your worst factor besides the temperature? It's the wind chill. Okay? Other volunteers?
Blanketing.
Blanketing, yes. In the wintertime, sometimes you go by some horses and they've all got blankets on. Is that what you were kind of referring to?
Yeah.
Yep. Dogs walking around. If you have a small dog, you put a blanket on. Moose has probably never had a blanket on, has he? No. Okay, I'm always over here. Okay, yeah. Here we go. Misters, yes. Because then that's often combined with fans in some of the bigger livestock. So you're going to, the water vapor is going to evaporate, and then that's going to use up thermal energy, so then you have a cooling effect due to misters.
I used to freeze 2 liters of water and switch them out and put them in the water bottles.
Okay, so what animal did you do that for?
Goats.
What's that?
Goats.
Goats? Okay, so you froze water in water bottles, and then you put it down so they...
Put it in a bucket.
Oh, you put it in their bucket to keep their water cool. Okay, so you're cooling their water. Yes. Could you see how you could also, I did this with the Newfies. One time we had to go to a funeral in Montana. It was 98 degrees and they were in the back of a pickup in a stock trailer. That's like crazy. I would stop at Walmart and buy 200 pounds of crushed ice. They were smart enough that when they saw me come with the ice, they would stand up. I would throw the ice on the bed of the truck, and then they would lay on it for the next, I had 2 or 3 hours to drive that way. One time I stopped at a gas station, somebody ran over and goes, I think your gas is spilling out on the other side of the truck. I go, no, that's water melting from the ice that the dogs are laying on. But I use ice to cool off Newfoundlands in the summertime. Go into Walmart, get all of that ice, boom. So yeah, the ice to cool things. Here we go.
Dr. Schinkel is using south cooling pads.
Okay, sow cooling pads. So like sows in like farrowing, is it in a farrowing crate? Can't remember.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so.
Yeah, it gets kind of hot and they don't have a lot of movement. And see, a sow is kind of not maybe totally opposite of a baby pig, but the baby pig wants 90, the sow does not want 90. So you can do cooling pads. And then that would be heat loss through conduction, right, where the skin was meeting the pad. Does a cooling pad have circulating water?
Yeah, it's supposed to like,
Okay.
I forget, it goes like a,
Yeah. So then you would have heat loss by convection also, right? The water circulating through this by the surface of the heating pad, at least on the internal surface. Okay, great.
At a feedlot in Nebraska, they use a sprinkler system that's timed, and then they also, in certain pins, they'll build up the dirt, so they have hills to climb on, so they can get in the wind a little bit higher.
Okay, yeah, the mounds. A lot of times you will go out west and they'll have mounds and feedlots and stuff. So the cattle can get up, and also when it's wet, it's nice to get up on the mound because sometimes you'll get away from all that mud. So, and then misting. Did they also have shade or not? Okay, yeah, a lot of those feedlots you go by, there is nothing, there's no shade. That's one thing, so they rely on misting.
I shaved my dog's stomachs in the summer.
Oh yeah, shaving your dog's stomach, yeah. Or shearing a sheep, yes. You shave their stomach because then they can conduct more heat loss to whatever surface, but you don't want to shave their back because if they're out in the sun and so forth, you'll get sunburn, right? Yeah, shaving certain areas.
Heat lamps.
Heat lamps for animals, right? Yeah. Like we just talked about the baby chicks. Get their environment ready, and then they have heat lamps. Baby pigs oftentimes have heat lamps around. Yep.
I'm using different substrates to act as insulators, like in a barn, like wood shavings.
Okay, different substrates for the bedding. Okay, right. Because then you can determine the thickness as well. So straw is a good insulator, and if it's thick, man, that's perfect to lay down and keep your body heat. Okay? Sand, not so much, right? Not as good as straw as far as an insulator. Other things we do for animals, whether it's management or the way we build buildings.
I was going to say adequate food and water. So different types of food and water.
Okay, so yeah, you can change to a hot diet or a cool diet. And the more concentrate, usually for like cattle, it's easier to digest concentrates, so then they generate less heat when they're digesting that. Roughage is a hot diet. It takes more energy, more metabolism to digest roughage, and that generates more heat. Okay, so you determine somewhat what you feed them. Mm-hmm. Something else we can do for animals, or we do for animals.
I was actually reading about how they build a monoslope buildings for cattle. It's like how it controls like the windbreak and ventilation. You only let so much sun in.
Right, and you can, and then how you face your building. A lot of times here we would face a building facing south. So in the winter, when the sun is further towards the equator, the sun can shine into the building, but in the summer when the sun is overhead, it's more going to provide more shade. Yeah, and then you can determine whenever you build buildings for livestock, you should know where the prevailing wind is coming from. And right here in West Lafayette, where's our prevailing wind? You know, if you had to bet, most days it's coming from where? southwest, really. A lot of things come from the southwest. When you're up higher altitudes like in North Dakota, the wind's coming from the northwest, right out of Canada. They're getting snow right now where I used to live, right? I mean, it's amazing. That's why we call it Mother Nature, because Father Nature would not do this stuff. Okay, other things that we can do for animals. We're still working. For dairy barns, you don't put a cap on the roof. You have a space. Have you ever looked at that? The ridge is open. Why? Natural convection. Heat rises, it goes along the slanted roof and heads right out the roof. And then you can have curtains on the side of the building. And if you want air to come in a lot, you open up the curtains and there's a lot of air drawn in. If it's winter and you don't want a lot of air, you close down the curtains. Design of a building. Flooring type, right? If you have cement, that's going to be a colder floor than if it's wood. All kinds of stuff. Other things we do for animals. Friends and neighbors that you've seen. Well, the chicks are a good example, right? We can ship them. They have to have air in their box. Okay, here we go.
Usually with chicks, you'll put the heat lamp on like specifically one side. That way, if they get too hot on that side, they can also do.
Yeah, they'll have free choice. So yeah, you don't have heat lamps over the whole area. You have it someplace, and they can choose where they want to lay. Yeah. So that's kind of free choice. So that's another thing is the density of animals in a pen. Right? If it's a hot summer and you have a lot of pigs in confinement, the worst thing that can happen for them is they're touching everybody because they have no space to move. That's not good. Anything else?
We love our animals inside the barn.
Oh yeah, so sometimes you can lock animals in the barn if you want to keep them out of the cold or keep them out of the heat, right? Yeah. Free choice. Like for dogs, I always have outside dogs. They can go outside, they come into a dog room, they can sleep together, they can sleep apart. Always have water, of course. Mm-hmm. Anything else that you can think of? Okay, I'm going to stop there. Come and look at this sheet. If you want to sign up,